Rebecca had spent her entire life feeling like the lesser daughter, not in her own eyes, but in the eyes of her parents. And the reason for that was simple. Her younger sister, Molen, was perfect. Molen had always been the golden child. She was brilliant, charming, and beautiful. She won every school competition, excelled in everything she tried, and naturally became the center of attention. By high school, she was class president, valedictorian, and prom queen. While studying business, in college she also pursued modeling, and of course she was successful in that too. Their parents adored her. When Molen got her first professional modeling job, they threw a lavish party, inviting friends and family to celebrate. Her first headshot was framed and placed above the fireplace, a permanent reminder of their pride. That same year, Rebecca graduated with a degree in computer science. Her parents muttered a quick, "well done," before returning to discussing Molen's next photo shoot. It had always been like this. While Molen was tall, slim, and graceful, Rebecca was shorter and curvier. Their mother constantly made comments about her weight, enrolled her in fitness classes she didn't ask for, and forced her onto diets. "Molen never struggles with her weight," she would say. "You could look as nice as your sister if you just put in a little more effort." By her mid-20s, Rebecca had stopped trying to earn their approval. She built a successful career, surrounded herself with people who appreciated her, and kept her interactions with her parents polite but distant. Then she met the man who would become her husband. Unlike her family, he saw her for who she truly was. He loved her dry humor, her passion for coding, and even her body, the same body her mother had spent years criticizing. He never once suggested she change. His proposal wasn't extravagant or staged for social media. It was just the two of them, curled up on the couch with takeout and their favorite TV show playing in the background. It was perfect, but her parents didn't see it that way. When Rebecca told them about her engagement, there was no congratulations, just silence. Then her mother asked if she was sure. Maybe she should improve her appearance before the wedding. At the engagement party, her parents barely interacted with her. Instead, they huddled in a corner over her mother's phone, whispering. Later, Rebecca's fiancé told her he had overheard part of their conversation. They were on the phone with Molen, who was crying. "This wasn't the plan," her mother had said. "We never expected Rebecca to get married first. The signs had been there all along. Rebecca still sent them invitations, both digital and physical. The electronic one had a read receipt, so she knew they got it, but they never RSVP'd. When she reached out, they dodged her calls and ignored her messages. Eventually, she had to move on. She was too busy planning her wedding to chase after people who clearly didn't care. Her wedding day was beautiful. A garden ceremony, a relaxed afternoon celebration, and most importantly, a day filled with love. Everyone said she and her husband looked so happy together. And they were. But the empty seats in the front row stung. There was no father-daughter dance, no proud parents beaming at her. In those moments, the absence was painful. After the honeymoon, she called her parents to ask why they hadn't come. Her mother immediately launched into a long rant about how deeply hurt they were for never receiving a formal invitation. Rebecca calmly reminded her that she had proof they had received both the digital and physical versions. But she didn't argue. She simply said, "I'm sorry for the misunderstanding," and hung up. Later, her husband pointed out something she had been too hurt to see. "They never wanted to come," he said. "They weren't just waiting for an invitation. They were waiting for an excuse." And then, just a few months later, Molen got engaged. Suddenly, their parents were full of enthusiasm. They threw themselves into planning the grandest wedding imaginable. Private fittings for luxury gowns, an exclusive venue, extravagant decor, everything Rebecca had never been offered. They talked nonstop about how Molen deserved the best. But something was different this time. Word had spread through the family about what had happened at Rebecca's wedding. People started asking questions. Why had her parents refused? To attend, Why had they ignored her? Some relatives who had always stayed neutral began pulling away. Several quietly refused to attend Molen's engagement party. Others backed out of wedding commitments. Then her parents called. Furious, they accused Rebecca of ruining Molen's wedding, of turning the family against them. "People are using ridiculous excuses to avoid coming," her mother snapped. "And we know you're the reason." Rebecca didn't argue. "I haven't lied to anyone," she said. "I just told them what happened." The next morning, Rebecca received a text from her sister. It was long, condescending, and filled with passive-aggressive jabs. "What you said to Mom and Dad was completely out of line," she wrote. "They've supported us our entire lives. Just because you're insecure about your own decisions doesn't mean you get to blame them for everything." Rebecca didn't respond. Instead, she blocked her number, but Molen wasn't so easily ignored. Hours later, Rebecca's husband received a string of messages from her. She started off politely. "As Rebecca's sister, and someone who deeply cares about our family, I feel compelled to reach out." But then, her true intentions became clear. She suggested that he had a responsibility to make Rebecca see reason. That family dynamics are complex, and someone with Rebecca's sensitivity might not understand the bigger picture. But the worst part was when she tried to play on his ambition. "Surely you understand that maintaining good relationships with successful family members like myself could be beneficial for your future," she wrote. When Rebecca got home, her husband was still laughing about it. "She really thinks I care about networking with her," he said, shaking his head. Instead of feeling hurt, Rebecca found herself laughing too. Years ago, Molen's words would have devastated her. Now, they just seemed pathetic. She wasn't the insecure girl desperate for approval anymore. She wasn't playing their game. Meanwhile, her parents scrambled to control the narrative. They called relatives, spinning a new version of events. They claimed Rebecca had sent their invitations to an old address, that she had deliberately left them out of the wedding so she could play the victim. But the family wasn't buying it. At a family gathering, someone innocently asked about Rebecca's wedding photos. Her mother snapped. She launched into a furious rant about how Rebecca had changed and was trying to destroy the family. But, this time, no one sided with her. Rebecca sat on the back porch that night, watching the sunset. Her husband sat beside her, taking her hand. "They're never going to change, are they?" she asked. "No," he said, squeezing her fingers. "But you have." And that, she realized, was what truly mattered.